My family treated me like their cash cow and forced me to let my brother live in my house, but I ended it with one bold move and left them begging. So, I, 28, female, was always the family's safety net, but never the priority. My whole life has legit been one constant reminder that my brother Damien, 31, male, was the golden child, while I was just there, the invisible daughter, the reliable backup plan. Growing up with Damien was straight up psychological torture. When I was 16, I got accepted into this prestigious summer science program that only took like 20 kids from the whole state. My parents straight up told me they couldn't afford the $500 fee. 2 weeks later, they bought Damien a $900 guitar because he showed interest in music. He played it twice, then tossed it in his closet to collect dust. But that's just one example from the greatest hits album of ways my family made me feel worthless. At my high school graduation, my parents showed up 20 minutes late because Damien, who'd been suspended twice, had a baseball game. They missed my valedictorian speech and then asked me to skip my dinner with friends because Damien was tired and wanted to go home. I just nodded and skipped my own dinner to drive him home. For my 21st birthday, I planned a small dinner at a nice restaurant. Damien showed up hammered with 4 of his friends who proceeded to order the most expensive stuff on the menu. When the bill came, Damien had forgotten his wallet. My parents told me not to make a scene, so I dropped $600 I couldn't afford because that's what family does. Damien never said thanks or paid me back. I ate ramen for the rest of the month while seeing his Instagram posts from bars every weekend. Every milestone in my life was followed by, but what about Damien? I graduated high school with a 4.0 GPA. And my parents asked, that's nice, but did you hear Damien made second string on the baseball team? I got a full scholarship to State University. And my mom asked, is there a baseball program for your brother? Yes, but Damien never applied. Too much paperwork, apparently. My parents bought Damien a laptop for school his sophomore year. He used it exclusively for gaming and failed 3 classes that semester. When I asked for one for college, they suggested I get a job because they were teaching me responsibility. So, I did. I worked 30 hours a week at a coffee shop while taking 18 credits. Damien dropped out of community college after 1 semester because the professors were biased against him. My parents nodded sympathetically and paid his rent for the next 6 months while he figured things out. Despite the constant emotional neglect, I pushed forward while Damien dropped out of the state college they'd paid for in full after just 3 semesters. I worked 2 jobs to put myself through school, earned scholarships, graduated with honors, landed a solid job at a financial consulting firm, and slowly worked my way up. When I got promoted at work, my mom listened for 30 seconds before changing the subject to Damien's new girlfriend, who was so pretty she could be a model. By the way, this was Zoe, future nightmare sister-in-law. By 26, I had saved enough for a down payment on a modest 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Every mortgage payment, every repair, every piece of furniture, all earned through my own hard work. No family loans, no parental co-signers, just me grinding away while Damien was on his 5th career path in 3 years. The day I closed on my house, my parents managed to attend the key handover for a whole 15 minutes before my mom got a call from Damien. His car had broken down again, and he needed a ride again. My dad left immediately. My mom hesitated for maybe 5 seconds before following him, promising they'd see the place another time. They never did schedule that visit, by the way. But they did help Damien buy new tires the next week. Tires he promptly ruined by doing donuts in an empty parking lot with his buddies. I painted every room myself. Installed ceiling fans in the bedrooms. Learned basic plumbing from YouTube videos. Fixed the garbage disposal when it jammed. Refinished the hardwood floors in the living room. All while working 50-hour weeks at my financial consulting job. My house became the one place in the world that was completely mine. Meanwhile, Damien and his wife Zoe, 29, female, bounced from one disaster to another. He cycled through jobs like seasonal allergies. Present for a few months, then mysteriously gone. The excuses were always epic. My boss was threatened by my ideas. The company couldn't handle my innovation. They weren't ready for someone who thinks outside the box. Translation: he showed up late, did minimal work, and got fired for watching TikToks during meetings. Zoe's shopping addiction didn't help matters. She had a closet full of designer bags that were obvious knockoffs and enough makeup to supply a Broadway theater for a year. Their apartment was filled with useless crap from her constant online shopping. But somehow they never had enough money for rent. And then there was Damien's brilliant decision to sink $10,000 borrowed from our parents into some sketchy cryptocurrency that honestly sounded like it was named by a 12-year-old on a sugar high. Come Rocket Moon Doge or some. He spent weeks texting me screenshots of its value going up by fractions of a cent, telling me I was missing out on generational wealth by not investing my savings. I stuck with my boring 401k and mutual funds like a total sucker, while Damien was apparently becoming the next Warren Buffett, at least in his own mind. Through it all, my parents kept enabling him. And occasionally, when their own finances grew strained from supporting him, they'd turn to me with sob stories that hit all my guilt buttons. They had a PhD in emotional manipulation. "I swear, your brother's car was repossessed and he can't get to work without it," my mom would say with tears. "He'll lose his job if we don't help." Of course, she conveniently left out that it was repossessed because he hadn't made payments in 4 months while somehow affording new gaming consoles. "Zoe needs dental surgery and they don't have insurance," my dad would explain. "It's painful for her to even eat." I later found out the dental surgery was cosmetic veneers so she'd look better in her Instagram posts. Bless natural beauty, totally not fake. "The landlord is threatening eviction if they don't catch up on rent," they'd plead. They never mentioned the 3 vacations Damien and Zoe had taken that year while not paying rent. Their Facebook was full of beach pics from trips I couldn't afford to take because I was too busy being responsible with my money. Every single time I'd cave. I'd tell myself this is the last time while signing over another check. Those small loans never got repaid. I kept a spreadsheet like the financial nerd I am. Over 5 years, I had loaned my brother over $17,000. Money I knew I'd never see again. When I gently brought up repayment once, Damien laughed in my face. "Come on, sis. You know how it is. Besides, you make bank at your fancy job." "Yeah, I make bank because I actually work my ass off, genius." One time, I actually refused to loan them money for their anniversary trip to Cancun. My mom didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. My dad called me selfish and said I was tearing the family apart. I eventually caved and funded half the trip. Damien and Zoe posted daily Instagram stories from swim-up bars while I ate microwave dinners at my desk, working overtime to cover the loan I'd given them. The most screwed up part, I'd constantly skip vacations, buy cheap clothes, and eat whatever for dinner so I could keep my emergency family fund stocked. I was too weak to say no. Too programmed by years of guilt trips to refuse when they'd call me at 11 p.m. panicking about some new financial crisis. I was basically a 24/7 ATM with legs at this point. At one point, I actually had to withdraw money from my 401k, paying penalties and taxes to help Damien cover the security deposit on a new apartment after they got evicted from the last one. When I expressed concern about the withdrawal affecting my retirement, my mom said, "You're so young. You have plenty of time to save more. Damien needs help now." Cool. So, my future doesn't matter. But Damien's inability to pay his rent for 6 straight months is a priority. My aunts and uncles noticed the pattern at family gatherings. The comments would start innocently enough. "So generous of you to help your brother out again," my aunt would say, eyebrow raised. "Family should always stick together, right?" The sarcasm was thick enough to spread on toast. My Uncle Rick was less subtle. "Must be nice having a sister with deep pockets," he'd say to Damien right in front of me. Damien would just smirk, pat my shoulder. "Catherine doesn't mind, she's loaded." I'd feel my blood boil, but never say a word. I'd just smile tightly and excuse myself to the bathroom where I'd silently scream into a towel like a totally well-adjusted adult. Only my Uncle Dave ever called it out. "You know you're being taken advantage of, right?" He told me once. "Your brother's not going to change as long as everyone keeps bailing him out." I brushed it off at the time, but Uncle Dave was the only one who ever saw through the family's BS. Probably why he was never invited to holiday dinners. Still, I kept showing up. Sunday dinners, holiday gatherings, the occasional weeknight dinner when Mom would call and say, "It's been too long since we've seen you." I'd arrive after a 10-hour workday to find Damien and Zoe already there, feet up on the coffee table, helping themselves to the food I'd brought. The mental tally of everything they owed me grew, but I kept playing the role of the reliable daughter and the savior sister. The thing is, things got even worse when Zoe entered the picture. She was pretty in that Instagram influencer way, all contour makeup and hair extensions. She'd been a year behind me in high school and had always given off major mean girl vibes. Think Regina George, but with fewer brain cells. From day one, she sized me up like competition. At first, I couldn't figure out why she seemed to hate me so much. Then I realized she was straight up jealous of my job, my independence, my house, especially my house. She'd make these little digs whenever she came over. "This kitchen is so much bigger than our apartments. Must be nice." Or "I love how you've decorated, though I would have gone with something more modern. All this looks a bit basic." One time she literally called my carefully chosen living room set, giving very much TJ Maxx clearance section. I wanted to point out that her designer purses were obvious knockoffs from the flea market, but I bit my tongue. The first time Zoe visited my house after Damien and she got engaged, she walked through every room like she was conducting an inspection. She opened closets without asking, measured windows with her eyes, and said things like, "This would make such a cute nursery someday," about my home office. I laughed it off, thinking she was just being her usual tactless self. One Thanksgiving, I overheard her in the kitchen with my mom. "Catherine's so lucky," she was saying. "All this space just for her." Meanwhile, Damien and I are crammed into that tiny apartment with paper-thin walls. It's not fair. Meanwhile, Damien's entitlement hit new heights after he married Zoe. He'd show up at my place unannounced, raid my fridge, and leave messes everywhere. Once he borrowed my laptop for a quick email and returned it 3 days later with the battery dead and some weird sticky substance on the keyboard. Another time, he took my car without asking while I was in the shower because Zoe needed tampons. He brought it back with an empty tank and a new dent in the fender. When I confronted him, he just shrugged. "It's just a car, sis. Chill out." "Sure, just a car that I make $450 monthly payments on, but whatever." I actually did object that time. Told him next time he takes my car without permission, I'm reporting it stolen. He laughed like I'd told a hilarious joke. Then told our parents I was being dramatic. The thing about Zoe that drove me especially nuts was how she'd weaponize Damien against me. If I denied one of their requests, she'd whisper in his ear, and suddenly Damien would be calling me, guilt-tripping me about family loyalty and how I'd changed since I got all successful. Then came the dinner that changed everything. I arrived at my parents' house on a Thursday evening in October, dead tired after closing a major account at work. Damien's car was in the driveway along with Zoe's leased BMW that they definitely couldn't afford. The dinner started with Damien dominating the conversation about his latest failed job interview. "The manager was a total jerk," he explained, mouth full of food. "Asked me all these technical questions like I'm supposed to be some kind of expert just to sell cars." Zoe nodded sympathetically while scrolling Instagram. "It's because they're intimidated by people with natural leadership ability," she said without looking up. What the flip natural leadership ability? This from a guy who doesn't know how to unclog a toilet. But sure, it's everyone else who's intimidated by his galaxy brain. Then my mother cleared her throat. "Catherine, honey, we need to talk about something serious." My stomach nodded. Here it comes, I thought. Another loan request, mentally calculating if I should just start setting up direct deposits into their account at this point. Damien and Zoe's landlord sold their building. My father jumped in. The new owner is raising their rent by 40%. They can't afford it. "And I'm pregnant," Zoe announced, her hand dramatically falling to her still flat stomach. 6 weeks. "Congratulations," I said, though something felt off about the timing of this announcement. "They have to be out by the end of the month," my mother continued. "And with the baby coming, they need stability. We were hoping," my father said slowly, "that they could stay with you just for a few months until they get back on their feet." I nearly choked on my water. "At my house?" "It makes perfect sense," Zoe jumped in. "Your place has 3 bedrooms. You don't need all that space just for yourself. Plus," Damien said, "you're never home anyway. Always working. Must be nice having a real job with benefits while some of us struggle." I felt a familiar pressure building in my chest. The same sensation I'd felt my whole life whenever I was about to cave to their demands. The guilt, the obligation. I actually tried to stand my ground. "I don't know, guys. I use the 2nd bedroom as my home office, and the 3rd bedroom is set up for guests." "You can move your desk to your bedroom," Zoe said dismissively. "And when do you ever have guests anyway?" Ouch. Direct hit to my pathetic social life. "Thanks for the reminder. It's just temporary," my mother pleaded. "Where else can they go with the baby coming?" I looked around at their expectant faces and felt my resolve weakening. "How long are we talking about?" "Just a few months," my mother insisted. 6 tops. "You won't even notice us," Zoe added with a smile. In my head, I was thinking, yeah, like I won't notice a tornado moving into my house. Against my better judgment, I found myself saying, "I guess that would be okay." Temporarily, the relief around the table was palpable. My mother's shoulders relaxed. My father nodded approvingly. Damien and Zoe exchanged victorious glances. "Great," Damien said, already pulling out his phone. "We'll start moving our stuff this weekend." "This weekend?" I squeaked. "That's in 2 days." "Well, yeah," he replied without looking up. "Our rent's already late, and the landlord's being a jerk about it." I felt like I'd just been expertly played again. The family chump strikes again, giving away her house this time instead of just her wallet. So, they moved in that Sunday with far more possessions than I expected. Enough to fill a 2-bedroom apartment, plus random storage units they'd apparently been paying for. Furniture, clothes, gaming systems, exercise equipment that looked brand new and unused. Apparently, they could afford a Peloton, but not their rent. Make it make sense. Where is all this going to go? I asked as I watched them unload the third U-Haul box. We'll figure it out, Zoe said dismissively. Your stuff is kind of outdated anyway. By Monday night, my house was unrecognizable. My carefully chosen furniture had been shoved into corners to make room for their massive sectional, and my home office, which I actually needed for, work, had been converted into a temporary storage space for their crap. Just until we sort through it, Damien promised. By the end of the first week, they'd claimed the main bathroom as theirs, meaning I had to use the small half bath downstairs. They'd commandeered the living room TV for Damien's gaming. They'd even started using my good towels for their dog, whose surprise also moved in, despite my explicit no pets rule when we discussed the arrangement. Pookie can't live with your parents, Zoe explained when I questioned the 60-pound untrained bulldog mix that was currently chewing on my couch leg. Your dad's allergic. Over the next 3 weeks, I became a stranger in my own home. They blasted music until 2 a.m. on weeknights. They invited friends over without telling me, left dishes in the sink for days, monopolized the washing machine, leaving my clothes wet in a pile when they needed to do their laundry. When I tried to establish boundaries, like quiet hours after 10 p.m. on work nights, Damien rolled his eyes. Stop being such a control freak. This isn't a dorm. Yeah, Zoe chimed in. We're family, not tenants. Loosen up. I was screaming inside, it's my house. I get to make the rules. But outwardly, I just retreated, avoiding conflict like I always had. I started staying late at work, grabbing dinner somewhere just to delay going home. I texted Uncle Dave one particularly bad night. They've completely taken over. He replied, kick them out. Your house, your rules, easier said than done. Every time I worked up the courage to confront them, my mom would call with updates about the baby or remind me how hard things were for them. The worst part was how they treated my personal belongings. My grandmother's vintage cookbook disappeared from the kitchen shelf. When I asked about it, Zoe vaguely remembered maybe putting it somewhere, but couldn't recall where. I found it 2 weeks later in the garage, water damaged from a leaky roof. My collection of succulents that I'd carefully tended for years. Pookie knocked them off the windowsill and neither Damien nor Zoe bothered to clean up the mess. I came home to dead plants ground into my carpet. My personal space shrank daily. I once found Zoe trying on my clothes just to see if they fit with the baby bump. Another time I discovered Damien had been using my expensive face wash as body soap because we ran out of body wash and yours was right there. Great, the financial drain continued too. They borrowed my streaming accounts, ordering pay-per-view movies without asking. They ran up my electricity bill by keeping every light on 24/7 and setting the thermostat to 75 in the middle of winter. When the first utility bill after they moved in was triple my normal amount, Damien just shrugged. It's colder than we're used to. Zoe needs to stay warm for the baby. My parents naturally sided with them at every turn. When I called my mom to vent about how they'd invited 6 people over for a small gathering that turned into a raging party until 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, she said, they're just excited about the baby. You should be more understanding. When I mentioned that I couldn't get any work done because they treated my home office like a storage unit, my dad suggested I be more flexible and work at a coffee shop if it bothers you so much. The tension built day by day. I'd come home to find new improvements they'd made without asking. A hideous wall decal in the living room. Rearranged furniture. My plants moved to make room for Zoe's collection of scented candles. When I objected, I was the unreasonable one. When I asked them to at least check with me before making changes to my house, I was controlling and uptight. One day, I overheard Zoe on the phone with her mom complaining about me. She's so weird about her stuff. Like, she actually got mad that we moved her desk to the basement. It's not like she uses it every day. First, I absolutely did use my desk every day for work. Second, I didn't have a basement. They'd moved my expensive ergonomic desk to the unfinished crawl space under the house where it was currently sitting in 2 inches of water from a recent rain. I was fuming, but still trying to keep the peace. I didn't want to be the villain in the family story. I didn't want to be the heartless sister who kicked out her pregnant sister-in-law. So, I swallowed my anger, bought a cheap desk, and set it up in the corner of my bedroom, the last bastion of my former life. Then came the day that broke my last thread of patience. It came exactly 1 month after they moved in. I came home early from work with a pounding migraine to find Zoe hosting some kind of product party in my living room. Women I'd never met were handling my things, sitting on my furniture, using my bathroom. What is happening? I asked, stunned. Oh. Zoe looked surprised to see me. I'm showcasing these amazing skincare products. You should join us. Though you could definitely use the under-eye treatment. Looking a little rough today. I was too shocked to respond. I just retreated to my bedroom, which was now the only space that felt remotely like mine. Even there, I could hear them laughing in the living room. I popped 3 ibuprofen and tried to take some rest. As I lay there with my migraine, I overheard Zoe talking to one of her friends in the hallway right outside my door. She must have thought I was asleep because I told her I was going to take a nap. No, it's her house, but she's barely here. Works all the time. No social life, no boyfriend. Kind of pathetic actually. So, you guys are just staying temporarily? Her friend asked. Zoe laughed. That's what she thinks. But once the baby comes, there's no way she'll kick us out. Damien's parents already agreed we should just take over the mortgage eventually. His sister can find an apartment or something. She doesn't need all this space. Won't she be pissed? What's she going to do? She's a total pushover. Always has been. The family cash cow, Damien calls her. Then they both giggled. The family cash cow. The words echoed in my head as something in me snapped like a dry twig. Years of suppressed rage started bubbling up like hot magma. The last thread of obligation severed clean. I lay there plotting, my mind suddenly crystal clear despite the migraine. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I spent hours researching tenant laws in my state. By 8 a.m., I was sitting in a lawyer's office downtown. The guy looked surprised to see me without an appointment, but I must have had a look on my face that said homicide is plan B because he squeezed me in. They don't have a lease, I explained. They don't pay rent. They were supposed to be temporary guests. The lawyer nodded. That actually works in your favor. In this state, without a formal agreement, they're considered licensees, not tenants. You can revoke permission for them to be there with reasonable notice. How reasonable? Given the circumstances, 30 days should be sufficient. Beautiful. I paid the retainer fee on the spot. By noon, I had official eviction papers drawn up by the lawyer. I bought new locks while I was out, too. $200 for the locks, $500 for the lawyer. Best money I ever spent. When I got home, I heard them laughing about something. I walked into the kitchen where they were raiding my fridge, and tossed the eviction papers onto the table. Damien picked them up, skimmed them. What's that? He asked with a smile, then paused, realizing what those papers were. Then his face turned purple. Wait. What the hell is this? He screamed, waving the papers in my face. I stood my ground. Your eviction notice. You have 30 days to find a new place. What the heck? You can't do this, Zoe shrieked. I'm pregnant. Yes, and I hope everything goes well with that. You have 30 days. We're family, she yelled. You can't just throw your family out. Funny since you consider me the family cash cow. Her face went white. That was a joke. I'm not laughing. 30 days. I can't believe you're kicking me and my pregnant wife out for a joke. What the hell is wrong with you? Damien wheezed. They tried every tactic in the manipulation handbook. Zoe cried about the baby. Damien threatened to tell everyone what a horrible person I was. They both promised to do better and respect my space. I didn't budge. That evening, I changed all the Wi-Fi passwords and installed new locks on my home office and bedroom doors. I also set up security cameras in the common areas, lawyer approved, just in case. Within 24 hours, my parents were involved. They showed up unannounced the next evening, faces grim with disappointment. We raised you better than this, my father said sternly. Family helps family. Zoe is beside herself, my mother added. The stress isn't good for the baby. I've helped enough, I replied. And they've abused my generosity enough. The decision is final. If you do this, my father warned, you'll regret it. There will be consequences. I had to laugh at this. They left in a huff, but things only escalated from there. For the next week, I received non-stop calls and texts from extended family. Cousin, you've always been jealous of Damien. This is a new low. Uncle, your grandfather would be ashamed. Aunt, how can you be so heartless to a pregnant woman? I blocked them all. Only Uncle Dave sent a supportive message. Good for you, kid. About damn time. Damien and Zoe tried a different approach. Sabotage. They accidentally left windows open during a rainstorm, causing water damage to my wood floors. They invited friends over who accidentally broke my things. They cranked the thermostat to 80 when they left for the day, running up my electric bill. They let Pookie crap in my bedroom and didn't clean it up. I documented everything. Photos, videos, witnesses. The lawyer was building a case for harassment if needed. One night, I came home to find my grandmother's wedding photo, one of my most treasured possessions, with a cracked frame and torn corner. Oops, must have fallen, Zoe said with a smirk when I confronted her. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just calmly walked to my bedroom, called my lawyer, and added it to the documentation. After 2 weeks of this crap, I had enough. I came home with 2 off-duty cops who were friends with my lawyer. Any property damage from this point forward will result in charges, I informed them calmly, and your 30 days will become immediate eviction. They toned down the sabotage after that, but tried a new angle, psychological warfare. Zoe started crying whenever she saw me, loud, dramatic sobs about the baby and how I was tearing apart the family. Damien attempted awkward apologies. We were stressed about money. We didn't mean those things. I didn't budge. In fact, I barely spoke to them. I'd mastered the art of moving around my own house like a ghost, coming and going at odd hours to avoid them. When we did interact, I kept my responses short and emotionless. This drove Zoe especially crazy. She thrived on drama, and my refusal to engage made her increasingly desperate. Meanwhile, I was preparing for my own future. I applied for a promotion at work that would require relocation. Started looking at apartments in the new city. Separated all my finances from any family connections, opening new accounts at different banks. I made a list of everything in the house that was mine with purchase dates and receipts where possible. 2 days before the deadline, my mother called sobbing. They have nowhere to go. No one will rent to them with their credit. Please, just a few more months. They can stay with you, I replied. We don't have the space. Neither do I, but the baby is their responsibility, not mine. Your father and I are very disappointed in you, she said, pulling out the classic guilt trip. This isn't how we raised you. Actually, it is, I replied. You raised me to take care of myself because you were too busy taking care of Damien. So, that's what I'm doing. The morning of day 30, I took the day off work and sat in my living room waiting. A sheriff's deputy waited in his car outside, a precaution suggested by my lawyer because Damien had a history of losing his temper. Damien and Zoe showed up with my parents and a small U-Haul around noon. No one spoke to me as they loaded their stuff. I felt nothing but relief with each item leaving my house. My parents couldn't even look at me, which was fine. Before they left, Zoe, hands over her belly, said, "When this baby comes, you're going to regret shutting us out. This is your niece. I wish your child well," I replied. "But my relationship with you and Damien is over." After they left, I changed the locks, security codes, and garage opener. The weekend was spent reclaiming my space, rearranging furniture, and cleaning out the lingering smell of Zoe's perfume. I threw out the sheets they used, bought new ones, and sage smudged the place like I was exorcising demons. I spent a truly ridiculous amount on cleaning supplies. The night after they left, I took a long bath in my bathroom and slept in my bed with clean sheets that smelled like my detergent. For the first time in months, I slept peacefully in my own home. No loud TV at 2 a.m., no dog barking, no passive-aggressive sighs outside my bedroom door. The next morning, I got the call from work. I'd gotten the promotion and the relocation package. London, an ocean away from Damien, Zoe, and my enabling parents. I accepted on the spot. For the first time in my life, I put myself first, and it felt so damn amazing. So, I'm writing this from my new flat in London. Yep. Took that promotion and ran with it. Best decision I ever made. Nothing like putting an entire ocean between you and your toxic family to really improve your mental health. 10 out of 10. Highly recommended. First off, let's talk about Damien and Zoe. Remember how they had nowhere to go? Turns out when facing actual homelessness, they suddenly found options. Weird how that works, right? After trying to guilt trip literally everyone in our extended family and getting shut down by most, they ended up moving into my parents' house. Specifically, the basement that my parents swore was unlivable when I suggested they take Damien and Zoe in instead of me. According to my sources, shout out to Uncle Dave and my former co-worker Jen who keep me updated on the family drama, Damien and Zoe have transformed my parents' basement into what my mom calls their apartment. The real fun kicked in about 2 months after I left. Remember Damien's brilliant cryptocurrency investment? Well, it turns out investing your life savings in something called Mooney Lawn Doge might not be the smartest financial strategy. The whole thing collapsed spectacularly, revealed as an elaborate Ponzi scheme. The founders disappeared with millions, leaving investors like Damien with nothing but worthless digital tokens and crushing regret. But wait, it gets better. Damien hadn't just invested his own money. Lol. What money? He'd convinced my parents to invest a huge chunk of their retirement savings, too. Guaranteed returns of 40% within 6 months, he'd promised. My dad had to cancel his retirement plans and is now working full-time at 62. My mom took a part-time job to help make ends meet. Oh, and the cherry on top. Damien had taken out several high-interest loans to buy the dip when the crypto started tanking. He'd also maxed out multiple credit cards, including 2 he'd opened in my parents' names without their knowledge. That little detail came to light when collection agencies started calling my parents about accounts they didn't know existed. Zoe's not faring much better. Her luxury skincare business imploded when she ran out of friends to scam. Turns out her upline disappeared with everyone's inventory money. She's now trying to pivot to being a mommy influencer on Instagram and doing awkward unboxing videos of free samples she begs companies for. The baby was born 4 months ago, a girl they named Catherine. Yep, they named her after me. Not because they love me or respect me, but because you guessed right, they thought it would emotionally manipulate me into sending them money. Real classy move. Jen sent me a screenshot of Zoe's Instagram post announcing the birth, named after her aunt who we miss dearly and hope will be part of her life soon. Family forgiveness, baby needs. I didn't respond, didn't react. Sorry, but naming your kid after the cash cow you've been exploiting doesn't automatically reactivate my bank account access. My parents have made several attempts to reach out, each more desperate than the last. First came the guilt trip texts. How could you abandon your family when we need you most? Then the fake olive branches. We'd love to hear about your new job. Translation: we'd love to know how much money you're making now. The latest strategy is using the baby. Little Catherine deserves to know her aunt. When none of that worked, my mother finally played her trump card. She called from an unknown number about 2 months ago. Catherine. Her voice was small and tentative. I almost hung up but decided to hear her out. Mistake, please don't hang up. She rushed. We need help. Your father had a minor heart attack last month, the medical bills. And Damien and Zoe and the baby are still living with us. We can't. We're about to lose the house. I'm sorry to hear about Dad, I said. I hope he recovers quickly, that's it. Her voice cracked. Your family is falling apart, and that's all you have to say? What would you like me to say, Mom? That I'll bail everyone out again? That I'll give up my life to fix problems I didn't create? The silence stretched between us. We're your family, she finally whispered. No, I replied. You're Damien's family. I was just the backup plan, the cash cow, the safety net. She didn't deny it. That silence said more than any confession could have. I hung up and blocked the number. Uncle Dave told me later that my parents had to sell their house. They moved into a small apartment while Damien, Zoe, and baby Catherine were forced to move in with Zoe's reluctant parents in Ohio. Apparently, Zoe's parents had conditions, including Damien getting and keeping a real job. He's now working at a car wash and, according to Uncle Dave, complaining daily about how the job is beneath his talents. Meanwhile, my life has improved in ways I never imagined possible. My new job in London challenges me and actually values my contributions. I've made friends who know nothing about my family history, who see me as the competent, successful woman I am, rather than Damien's responsible sister. I've started dating someone who treats me with respect and doesn't see my bank account as a communal resource. I've discovered that without the constant drain of my family's demands, I actually have hobbies. I've taken up photography. I've gone hiking in Scotland. I've started learning Italian just because I want to. Uncle Dave flies out to visit me next month, the only family member I still have contact with. He's been sending me updates on the Damien and Zoe show, mainly because he knows I find it darkly hilarious. His last text: Damien got fired from the car wash for being on his phone too much. Some things never change. The most surprising part of this whole experience: I don't miss them. I thought I would. I thought there would be a hole in my life where my family used to be, but it turns out they were never really there for me to begin with. My toxic family is facing the consequences of their actions for the first time in their lives, and I'm thriving on my own terms. And sometimes the most satisfying thing you can do is watch karma work its magic from 3,500 miles away with a nice glass of wine in a flat that nobody can guilt trip me out of. Life is good.